Good morning to some, good afternoon to others. This is Jeff Gamble, and we are live at the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show. Welcome, welcome. We're actually going to be doing a recap today of the 21 Laws of Leadership. And those of you who haven't read that book or haven't gone through that material, it is absolutely one to be involved. That's weird. Trying to add Bess here. Bess said she's watching, but I can't add her. What in the world? Sure, I'll tag some people. Sent. Okay. Bess, for whatever reason, it says I can't add you. Why is that? There we go. Took me a minute. There we go.
We made it.
Always fun, technical support.
I know. It's what brings, I just have a joke about technology. It's only human.
Yes.
So we have to, give it a leeway here. I'd like to welcome everyone this Tuesday morning to this version of the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show. And this is the recap of all the 21 laws. So that's really a wonderful overview. I am Bess McCarty of MLM Millionaire Club, and this is Jeffrey David Gamble of my Leadership Network. And Jeff is a certified John Maxwell trainer. So we're able to bring you these MLM Lunchtime Leadership shows from the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. If you're watching the replay, we'd love if you type that in so that we can thank you. And I'd love to hear where you're from. And if you know people that would benefit from learning about leadership, please share, tag them in the comments so they can get in on this too. Leadership, of course, affects everything, not just network marketing, but all business, all relationships. Really, it's by going through this course, it's made me a better person, a better friend, a better everything. So, and it takes time to let these things sink in. So we're glad that you're here for the recap, and we're going to be starting over again tomorrow on law number 1, because we learn more. Each time we go through it, we learn a lot deeper. These are generic trainings, and we love bringing them to you. We love being with you here every day. We love helping people grow. Our purpose is to equip, educate, and empower entrepreneurs and create independent servant leaders. Right, Jeff?
Yes. That is absolutely the case. I've really enjoyed this series of what we've been doing. Two things about just overall the 21 laws is, number one, is you have to learn them. And number two, you have to use the principles. My biggest problem was when I first saw this material is I didn't know any of it. I had never heard of these lessons. I wasn't brought up in an environment or a family that leadership was something that was ever talked about. I don't think it was ever even mentioned. Now, funny enough, my mom's a school teacher, and rules were there, but leadership is a little bit different than that, about growing, an environment, growing people. Hey, Dakota, how are you? I see people jumping on. Michael's here. Hello. Denise is here. I see a couple people who just joined in. So that was number one, is you A, have to learn the lessons, then B, you have to use the lessons. And you're only going to use the lessons when you're actually physically in the mix of doing it. And from my own personal experience, the first 3 laws that I learned, there were 3 laws specifically of the 21 laws that I knew, just because when I read them, I was like, oh yeah, these are laws. It was really funny. John Maxwell would always say that. He's like, if you're good at something, you'll be like, oh yeah, John, these are laws. Those other ones I'm not too sure about. Let me go do my own research. But 3 of them I was really good at. The other 18 I didn't even know existed. Well, if you don't know these principles even exist, how well do you think you're probably going to be doing them? I wasn't doing them at all. I wasn't even knowledgeable of them. So as you break the rules, as he said, you know, these laws come with consequences. So what you don't know and what you're not good at will come with the consequences of not being able to build a significant organization, not being able to get people to follow you. And when it all comes down to it, that's what he says leadership's about. Leadership is about creating a following. And I was kind of thinking about this this morning before jumping on this call or jumping on this video, is if you think about the 21 laws of leadership, in today's society, we have such great companies in the direct sales industry. We have such great products inside the direct sales industry. We have so much proof inside the direct sales industry that those three things you kind of have in common. A lot of people focus all of their talk, all of their presentation, all of their recruiting in how great their company is and how great. And it's not that you're not supposed to mention that it's not great, but in today's world, you then are the deciding factor, because there's so many great companies to join and there's so many great products to join and there's so much, you know, great compensation in the industry. The question is why should they join with you? So what you have to realize is, regardless if you're presenting or regardless if a video is presenting, I'm not so much looking at the message as I am the messenger. Does the messenger have what I want? Is the messenger going somewhere? Is the messenger leading? Is the messenger somebody I want to follow? That's, you know, questions, you know, that people are asking out there. And I think a lot of people kind of skip over that and be like, oh, but the company's so good. Well, the company's so good, but why should I join with you? And that's one of the things that I really got out of the 21 laws of leadership is this is stuff I need to work on for me. Outside of the 21 laws, you have the 21 qualities of a leader, which they talk about in the very beginning, which are the things that attract people to you. You know, you have to, we're in the attraction business, but some people forget that the attraction isn't the business. The attraction is the people, because people move products don't move people. And if you think your products move people, go set them outside on your porch by themselves and see how many people your products recruit. You'll find in general that products do not recruit people. Comp plans do not recruit people. You could set your comp plan out front, copies of it, PDFs of it. You could send people PDFs of it. Let's be real honest. Most people don't understand the comp plan to begin with that are actually in the business, let alone outside the business. So it's not the comp plan. It's not the products themselves. Although I have watched people give people products, you know, but it's the person who transfers the product to another person. You know, the products then, you know, do their job. And then all of a sudden somebody's like, oh, I really like that. I want some of that. And then they have to figure out how to order and where to order. You know, right now, this is another reason, because, you know, the internet's there and because people don't follow directions. You know, a lot of the products that are in the industry are now available all over the place. Why are people buying them from you? You have to think about that. Yeah, I know they're not supposed to be on Amazon and they're not supposed to be on eBay and they're not supposed to be on Craigslist. But if you go there, if I want any product inside the industry right now, I can go there and find it. So you're going to have to be a leader and lead people to, hey, this is the correct place to get them. I've read the rules. I've read what's supposed to be happening. This is the way we're supposed to conduct business. And that's either going to be very attractive. As my good friend said, you are either a shining example of what to do, or you are a perfect example of what not to do. But either way, you're an example. And because you're an example, that puts you in a leadership position. You know, whether that's a good leadership position or a bad leadership position. So what John said is the 21 laws are not negotiable. They're not things you can say, well, I only need a few of these. You really do need all of them to work. You know, you need to be knowledgeable of all of them. You need to be efficient in all of them, but you might not have a strength in all of them, if that makes sense. If you don't have a strength, watch this. In direct sales, it's so easy. Whatever you don't have a strength in, you recruit. You recruit whatever you don't have a strength in, but watch this. You will have to have a pretty high level of leadership in an area that they need to be able to see you as a leader, to be able to follow. So that's why you consistently want to work on the, you know, the qualities of a leader, and you consistently want to work on the laws of leadership. Are these the only things out there? No, it's just the foundation. It's the basis for being able to build organizations, for being able to recruit, for being able to bring people on your team and team build. So that's kind of the first thing that I have. I'm going to turn this over to Bess because she typically has really good stories and really good insight on this entire thing. So that's what I personally have enjoyed. I've enjoyed all the comments back. I've enjoyed all the insights back. I've enjoyed people reaching out and saying, hey, this is really helping. This is what I'm getting from it. I didn't even know that. I've never heard that. This is something I want to get better at. So, Bess?
Yes, thank you, Jeff. What we've been hearing is things like this. You know, this class has made me a better person. I've gotten a lot of good out of these live events. Or another person, I was not having a good morning and I listened in and it helped me focus. So many people have fallen in love with these 10 laws, and we're so happy to bring them. You know, of the laws, life, we didn't make them up. John Maxwell didn't make them up. Nobody made them up. Life, they're just a fact of life. And ignorance of the law does not mean that we can escape the repercussions of them. There's 21 of them. Life will show us where we are the weakest. Some of them, yeah, like Jeff said, we'll gravitate to, and some we won't. But life will show us over time. I'm going to just mention the laws. And I've been reflecting myself over the 21 laws now, looking back and seeing, well, which ones are my strengths and which ones are my weaknesses. So I invite you to do that while I read through them. There's the law of the lid, and that is that your ability really is the ceiling. That's how far you can go. Then there's the law of influence, and that is the true measure of a leader, how much influence that you have. The process, law of the process, that leadership is accomplished daily, not in a day. It's that consistent effort. The law of navigation, that we don't want to just steer, we want to chart a course, know where we're going. The law of addition, that people listen to you if you're solid and you have something good to share. Law of solid ground, that is trust. That is the foundation for leadership. And the law of respect. People follow those who are stronger leaders than they are. And the law of intuition. You know about that one. When a nudge comes to you, and trust that and follow it. The law of magnetism. You attract who you are, and not what you want, right? You attract who you are. The law of connection. Touch a heart first before you attempt to lead or ask for something from followers. The law of the inner circle. A leadership is determined by those closest to him. And the law of empowerment, give power to others that have earned it, of course. And the law of the picture, it takes a leader to raise a leader, which is like what we know as duplication in network marketing, that you be who you want to lead or develop. You have to be that first. Number 14, the law of the buy-in. People buy into a leader first, then the vision. The law of victory. We find a way. We don't settle for anything less than victory. We find a way to win. And the big Mo, or law of the momentum. Momentum is the leader's best friend, which we know in network marketing, of course. Doing things fast and concentrated at times. The law of priorities. Not just activity, but accomplishment. Setting priorities, making sure we're accomplishing, not just being busy. 18, the law of sacrifice. We must give up to go up. The law of timing. When is as important as how or what. The law of explosive growth. The way to do that is develop leaders who develop leaders. Perfect for network marketing. And then lastly, the 21st, the law of legacy. And that is make sure that you leave a succession, because not many leaders do. And back to Jeff.
So guys, you want to take these laws. First of all, you want to learn them. Then you want to live them. Mm-hmm. Then you want to lead others to the law. The way to lead others to the law is say, hey, I just watched this class, or hey, I just went through this series. And not everybody's able to get on at noon. I understand that. Certain people, you need a certain job that will allow you to do this, but that's why they're recorded. That's why they're going to be online. So we're going to go through this series again, and it's really about you guys getting involved, physically involved in, you know, the conversation, how you're able to use it, what you're able to see, the more involvement you have and say, hey, this is what happened. This is what I'm getting. This is what I'm hearing back. That's when you're going to know that this stuff is really working, is when you actually see it in, you know, everyday relationships, when you see it in conversations with your team, when you see it in recruiting people. That's when you're really going to know it's working. You can also use it. What I love about these laws is it works not just inside of business. It works inside of work. It works inside of a household. It works inside of your church or synagogue or mosque or whatever you worship. These principles are universal. They work in different languages. That's one of the things John's like, I realized right away when I was doing this, you know, even when we went overseas, these laws were present, and they have the ability to present themselves and help people achieve different levels of success because of the laws. And it took him over 20 years to study these. So it wasn't something like he sat down and was like, well, what are the laws of leadership? I mean, he built giant organizations. He was in and out of, you know, the presence of great people. And while he was in the presence of great people, he would always ask them and think about and say, what about this? And he would run it past. And, you know, some people would come back and be like, yeah, that's a law. There's no way around it. That is a principle. And sometimes he would come up with stuff and they'd be like, no, there's these instances where it doesn't work. So, I mean, these were challenged again and again and again by people who had built huge organizations. So you could really put some stock into this book. And, you know, obviously it's been around for over 10 years now. It's one of the best sellers of his, but it's one of the best selling books of all time. So you can go through, and this is material that, you know, you can pull out and use. It's a book that I say it's one of the foundational books that you want to pull out at least once a year and read. You want to study it, and you want to ask yourself every time, how am I doing on these? How am I doing on these? What do I need help with? And sometimes it's not necessarily help understanding the law, it's help with some other things. And that's what, you know, Bess is here to kind of talk to people about, you know, some of the therapy side. Why can't I break through? Why can't I get this? And it may not be that you don't understand the law. It may be something else that's stopping you from doing it. It may be something in the past. It may be something you were told growing up that you're holding on to. It may be something that happened, you know, early on in childhood at school that happened to you. And now you're holding on to that and thinking that that's the reason. We all make up stories, would be the best way to say it. We make up stories and reasons why things are the way they are. You know, whether we can or we can't, there's usually a story behind it. And a lot of times, a lot of cases, those stories aren't true. Those stories aren't true. They're not based in fact. Sometimes they're based in emotion. Sometimes they're based in something somebody else said to us because we respect that person, then we agree with it. And it wasn't right to begin with. But, you know, until you analyze it, until you dig down deep, a good friend of mine said, until you get to the deepest root cause, it's very hard to overcome something, because the problem that really exists sprouts off all these other problems. So you work on the surface of all this stuff, but really it's one thing. It may be one thing holding you back that you need to get over, and you need to get to the bottom of that. You need to find it. You need to overcome it. And what it does is it opens you up. Now you can get the rest of the laws. Now you can figure out the rest of this stuff. So that's kind of what I've worked on. As I've gone through personal development, as I've read this book, but then I was like, there was all this other stuff that I didn't understand. I didn't understand, you know, that I had been programmed. I didn't understand that I had been programmed. And some of the reasons why network marketing is so hard is because we've all been programmed. The system, the way that it's set up, is to teach people to become what? Employees. And if your parents, you know, growing up, if your parents and your family all were employees, and that's the conversation they had, you know, and then the school system is built to teach employees and to get more employees and to get you to fall in line and do everything. You realize that the school system was set up just like the factories. That's how it was originally set up. It was set up in rows and lines, and you passed things in. Do you remember this? Pass from the back to the front. The reason it was done that way is they were setting you up. They were programming you to work inside of the factories. So the school system was kind of in on it with the companies, with what was going on, and they all played the game together to produce more employees. So if your grandparents had been trained that way, and your parents have been trained that way, and you've been trained that way, and you're training your kids that way, why do you think it's so hard to break out of that mold? Well, because the programming's so strong that that's what you see, that's what you hear, that's what you talk about. The same thing is true with leadership. If you've never been talked about, if leadership's never been discussed, if you've never gone over it, it may be something you have to go over again and again and again. People are like, oh my gosh, you're going to go over the 21 laws again? Don't we already know that? You know, that's like learning one sheet of music, reading through it and be like, don't you know the song already? You know, that'd be insane. That's like going to the gym once, working out each body part, and at the end of 7 days that you've worked out each body part at least once, people are like, okay, that's it. I mean, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if you could go in and work out once and then get the benefits from it every single week after that, that it just kind of, it doesn't work like that. You have to go back in and do it again. You have to go back in and do it again. And you get, watch this, you get stronger, not just by going back in, you get stronger by lifting heavier and heavier weight in the gym. Well, the same thing is true about, you know, the 21 laws. You get stronger by dealing with more and more situations, more and more stressful situations at some point, you know, and there's a physical aspect, there's a mental aspect, and there's an emotional aspect to it. You know, the physical is you have to be in shape to be able to handle it. The mental is you have to be there to be able to understand it. And then the emotional is you have to basically be strong enough to deal with it, you know, and know how all this works, because people bring in all their personal garbage, would be the right way to say it, all their personal garbage, all their rules, all the problems they've ever had. They bring all that into a scenario when they're dealing with a leadership issue. And then they wonder why it doesn't work out. You know, if you're wondering why it's harder for you to recruit, look at the amount of people your families have affected. Have they affected people positively or negative? What I didn't realize is a lot of times I grew up around some people who affected people negatively. I had friends that affected people negatively. And I picked up a lot of their habits. I picked up a lot of their vocabulary. I picked up a lot of their, you know, things that they did and said. And what ended up happening was I was pushing people away, and I didn't even know it. I wanted to attract people, but the things I was doing was pushing people away. So this material, I kind of give credit to. It changed everything for me. And if you're looking for that huge change, if you're looking for, you know, you can't change your destination overnight, but you can change direction. You can at least start heading in the right direction. And it's one lesson at a time, one book at a time, one audio at a time, one YouTube at a time. And in sitting down and really taking notes and evaluating this stuff and be like, what am I doing good? What am I doing bad? What is one thing? Guys, just focus on one thing. What is one thing I can change? What is one thing that I can implement today that was said that I can go out and use today to improve? And sometimes it's getting around the right people, because you can be, watch this, you can be in the right company with the right product, with the right comp plan, with the right system. But if you're not doing the right things, it's just like the person who gets on the railroad track. You can be on the right track, but if you're not moving in the right direction, doing the right things, you'll get run over. Same is true in business. So with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Bess for some insight.
Thanks so much, Jeff. And I want to just say howdy to Jacqueline, Denise, Steve, James, Aviva, Mark, David, Ross, Joyce, Dakota, Terry, Marilyn, Kareem, Julie, Gohil. And congratulations, Joyce. She says, I was late because I was signing up a new recruit. Good reason. Congratulations to you. And Denise typed in homeschooling. Are you saying that this applies to homeschooling as well? Because I'm a homeschooler. I homeschooled my son. And we were in other homeschooling groups and everything, so he could be around other kids. But yeah, definitely applies to being a teacher. All the leadership laws, right? Applies to being a teacher, a parent, a mate, everything. So glad you all are here. We love the likes and loves. We're going to take questions in a little bit. I'd like to hear your takeaway. I'd like to hear your favorite law. You know, what do you resonate with the most, and what's the toughest one for you? I'd like to hear that, because in a little bit we'll take questions and answers. I mean questions. And you know what Jeff said is so true, that maybe you have all the other ingredients in place, but maybe if you're not following one of these laws of leadership, that could break the chain, because the chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So that's why I don't mind giving a little attention to my weakness, so I could shore up and strengthen my weakness, or learn to delegate that or something. And remember that the number one reason that people don't join network marketing is they didn't like the person. Exactly what Jeff was saying. You can have all the things in place, but if you're a lousy listener, if you want the attention to be on spotlight, to be on you and not on your team, if you're doing it for selfish reasons, and believe me, we all have pieces of us that are selfish. You know, I'm working with this every day and saying, okay, now the best, was this for you or for the good of the whole? So yeah, feel in good company if you're working to strengthen this, like we all are. But it's an adventure, it's a journey. Just a little bit about John Maxwell. His first edition of writing this book was in 1998. 10 years later, he updated it based on the feedback of leaders using that information in the field. And that's why we listen to him. He was one of 25 authors that Amazon, in their 10th anniversary, mentioned in their Hall of Fame, on their 10th anniversary Hall of Fame. And in 2014, he was named the #1 leader and management expert in the world by Inc. magazine. He's written over 70 books, including this one and 21 qualities of a leader. And he says, if you follow the 21 laws, people will follow you. And in his decades of learning and teaching, he says, he's come down to this. He said, I tell you this, everything rises and falls on leadership. You may not believe that, but any endeavor that involves people will live or die depending on the leadership. And like Jeff mentioned, you know, how do you know if you're a leader? If there's one other person in the room, you're either a good example or a bad example. So John leaves us with these thoughts at the end of his book. He says, personnel determine the potential of the organization. Relationships determine the morale of the organization. Structure determines the size of the organization. Vision determines the direction. And leadership determines the success. So encourage us, pursue your dreams, be who you're meant to be, and to accomplish what you're meant to in this world. And remember to develop other leaders. Jeff?
So guys, going through, you know, I always pull quotes from different places, and you know, when you finally get this, you know, Alexander the Great said, I'm not afraid of an army of lions led by sheep. I'm afraid of an army of sheep led by lions. So it's amazing. You don't have to come from anywhere specifically special. You don't have to have any specific training background prior to. You just have to really want to make this happen. Leadership usually is not given, it's taken. You know, it's not something you can just hand out. It's something that's taken by you stepping up. True leaders don't create followers, they create more leaders. So you have to understand leadership to be able to create more leadership. Because obviously, if you don't know what leadership is, you wouldn't even know what to look for. A person who feels appreciated will always do more than what's expected. So being able to point out what people are doing good inside of an organization, that's what sometimes leadership is all about, finding people who are better than you. I really like this by Jim Rohn. He said, the challenge of leadership is to be strong but not rude, be kind but not weak, be bold but not bullied, be thoughtful but not lazy, be humble but not timid, be proud but not arrogant, have humor but without folly. Don't be a goofball, basically. So, you know, is there a lot to leadership? Yeah. When John's always asked is, what's the one thing I need to know about leadership? He said, well, the one thing you need to know about leadership is there's more than one thing you need to know about leadership. That is the one thing. There's going to be several things you're going to have to get and figure out. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You will have to grow. You will have to learn. You will have to study. Now, how do you study? Is what I found is reading every day on this subject, reading every day about people and about leadership. Does nothing but every time I read a book, it allows me to relate to more people. Every time I read a book, it allows me to think like that person, using somebody else's head instead of my own. And what I found is there's certain people out there, the majority of them, especially John's material, it allows me to kind of affect things in a way I wouldn't have been able to affect them before, because I just see it so differently. So what I can say is dive into his material, really study it, really learn it. If you're going to spend time, on something outside of physically doing the work and contacting and making, you know, making your business happen, this is actually the best material I've found that you can spend time doing. Remember, most people will spend the majority of their time trying to entertain themselves rather than trying to educate themselves. The reason why it's so easy to make this happen is because so few people are trying to make it happen. You know, I had a mentor who said, the reason why it's so easy to get rich is because most people aren't even trying. So therefore, you know, it's pretty simple. But the problem is because there are so few people actually trying. You know, one of my mentors said, he says, how many people do you know who are trying to be successful, trying to get rich, trying to get to somewhere? And the majority of people can't even think of one person outside of maybe their network marketing family. He's like, that's why it's so easy to make this happen, is because most people aren't even looking for it. There's nobody in the way. You know, somebody once told me, if you want to rise to the top, it's actually, you know, it's actually difficult to find the ladder, but once you find it, it's actually easy to get there because there's not anyone in line. There's not a whole lot of people in line. So most people aren't willing to grow. Most people aren't willing to go. You know, Maxwell says leadership and anything worthwhile is usually uphill. It's usually uphill. And typically when you find things that are uphill, you find very, very, very few people who are willing to make that climb. So with that, guys, what we want to do is we're going to turn this over to the group. We want to know what you think. We want to know what you got out of it. Like Bess said, what is your favorite law? I think the question is what is your favorite law and why? How have you used this? And maybe what law did this open up? Did you bring up and be like, man, that's a law I need to work on?
So that's a good one, huh? Julie says, is there law of the mastermind? What law would that come under, Jeff? The law masterminding. She says maybe it's the inner circle.
Yeah, the inner circle is the group of people that you're going to run it. You know, that's going to run that. You're going to run the information by to find out.
Mm-hmm. And I love what Denise said, that her family reads this book, The 21 Laws, and it helps them to develop character and their wealth. That is cool. She mentioned homeschooling, that her family studies this book. Whoa. How would you like to be in her family? How would you like to be one of her kids and get this kind of a start? Good going, Denise. I like homeschooling anyway because you can individualize the teaching. There's pros and cons to everything, but I like it because of that. And people are writing in their weakest and their strong ones. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Becky says that her favorite, one of her favorites, it's hard to pick a favorite, is focus your team on what really matters. Good job identifying. And who else? Julie, strongest law, the lid, weakest, law of empowerment. Good to know, both. Anybody else? What's your favorite or strongest? What's your strength and why? What do you like?
Becky says one of her favorite laws is the law of focus. You know, focusing on your team is what really matters.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I was trying to reflect today, well, what's my favorite law? And just, I think that one of the things I've gotten from this, one of my favorite things is that you attract who you are, not what you want. So don't sit around wishing for what I want to show up in my life or the kind of classes or students that I want, but be that and be an example, because people will follow an example more than my words, right? To be that, live that. And that feels good, you guys. That feels good to be, walk my talk. And that's a satisfying feeling. And at the end of my life, I want to go out saying, I made the most of this life. And I helped all the people that I could. And I made this change in the world. I made this difference to at least one person. that I did what I came here to do. That feels real, real good.
Yeah, the law of magnetism, you know, makes a huge difference. And that's why we always want to work on ourselves, because the more we work on ourselves, the more that will rub off on our activity and our actions and the people that we're around.
Mm-hmm.
So guys, any other questions, concerns, thoughts, takeaways from this material, please write it in the comments, and we will get to those questions right away. Other than that, I'm excited to be able to get started on the material again tomorrow. Something we're going to go through over and over and over again and get to the point where, I mean, imagine if you got to the point where you knew all these laws and you had them memorized and you just had the ability to pick this stuff out left and right, and be able to actually teach it and train on it and say, hey, you know, this is material that I learned. Here's the book that it comes from. Anytime you're going to give something out to somebody, always give them the reference of where you got it. Here's the book that I got it from. So that way, when they go, they're not just telling me something. Here's, you know, I can go look up the material itself. Here's the lesson that they're talking about. It makes you more credible. It makes it easier to take when it's coming from somebody else and somewhere else.
Yes. And collect stories. As you have stories with these experiences, I'm trying to get better at this myself, to bring my stories to you, make this a story time to demonstrate the principles. So as you hear stories from us, or at your company conventions, or just on the internet, or you have stories, examples, collect them. I like to write them down on an index card and then file that according to the categories. But write down these stories of leadership that you have and begin to share them with people. As we go into this second round of going through the 21 laws, one a day on these lunchtime leadership shows, who has a suggestion how we can make this better for you? Because we want to learn, we want to improve every time. So I'd love if you type that in, or even private message me or anything. Keep this discussion going. Those hearing the replay can certainly keep adding to this too. So we want to hear from you. We want to make this better and better for you, so that you can apply this to your life. If you're not a member yet of the MLM, the Facebook group, the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show, you can go there and request membership. Then I can add you in. And then you can invite your team or friends or anybody to do the same thing. So it's a happening group. They're closing in on 300 people. It's a wonderful community. And that's where you can get the notices, the replay, the free book to follow along. The replays, by the way, we have closed captions on YouTube for those that helps. So anything else we can add in to help you guys? Any questions that you have, please let us know.
We would appreciate the knowledge.
If you want to be on my text reminders for this, just private message me. I can add you. How can we help you? What are your stuck places? How can we help?
So Bess, that's all I have for today. Do we want to wrap up and let people know where to go and the other information? You know, guys, for those of you who don't know, Bess and I actually run a class every Sunday. So everybody's welcome to get information on that. The basics are, you know, this is the material on how to deal with people. That is the specifics on what to do to actually build. It's generic, it's non-company specific. That material's out there to basically help people grow their business, but it's a skill set. It's the MLM Quick Start Basics, what it takes to actually build an organization, what to say, how to say it, what's working to be able to recruit people and build a team. So that's what we do every Sunday evening. That is a closed group. It is a membership-based school, and you know, there's more stuff coming. So this is the basis of what we want to do. Is this is our giving back. This is being able to help people out. You know, obviously what we're doing here is free. It doesn't cost anything to sit back and learn, and we're trying to get the material out there every day. So we appreciate everybody for being on. We're thankful that we have an audience, you know, the power of one. But I mean, we've had an amazing amount of people on this, you know, who have all different backgrounds. Guys, we've seen people who have, you know, empires inside of network marketing who have been on. We have people who just got started. We have people who are currently succeeding, and everybody in between. So we're just thankful for everyone and every one of you, and any material that you can give us that, you know, improves us, that helps us learn. We are open to it. So thank you so much for watching. Bess, over to you for any closing thoughts.
Yes, Julie, tomorrow is Law of the Lid. And for some people, that's one of their favorite I feel like it helps with your personality test to help you with your personality. Right. Thank you, Julie. Yes, tomorrow. And welcome, Athena. And Julie is stuck with leading my team to empowerment. Do we have any words for her right now to help? Stuck with leading it to empowerment.
My leadership, I was always taught, you can't, it's kind of like there's a saying, you can't lead a horse to water, but you can provide the water. So what you want to do is just be the best example. Not everybody's coming with you. I was told this. John actually makes this example. He's like, if you want to climb a really high mountain, he's like, certain people are just going to help you get to base camp. Certain people are going to go halfway up and say, hey, this is all the farther I need to go. I can see everything that I wanted to see from right here. I'm unwilling to take the rest of the trip. I'm unwilling to go any further. There's nothing you can do to move certain people. There's nothing you can do to move them. What you need is more people, not different people, just more people. It takes more people to go. One of the tricks I've always been taught inside of direct sales is if you're working with the same people you worked with years ago, you're working with the wrong people. If you're working with the same people you worked with years ago, you're working with the wrong people, meaning you need new people. That's the trick. It's always new. We always resort back to what's comfortable. And what's comfortable is hanging out with the people we've always hung out with, hanging out with the people we know. But that's not where growth is. Growth is with the new people. Growth is where, it kind of is uncomfortable. Growth is where that's the trick, is getting yourself to do the things you don't necessarily feel like doing, but are necessary to do to grow the organization. So that would be my tip when I hear that, this is what's happening. It's just more people. It's just more people. It's new people.
Yeah. So if it's about 10% of the people on your team are going to actually do anything or be builders, we just have to go find more people instead of focusing on the ones who are sleeping right now, which it might not be their time, because remember, everybody has to be at high noon. So you wait till it's their time, now or 10 or 50 years from now, I don't know. But yeah, get new people. But the existing ones on your team, if you want to give them their best shot, begin to turn responsibilities over to them. Like get them to events. And one trick to get people to events is to give them a little job to do there and say, like if somebody hasn't shown up at an event for a while on your team, you could say, hey, would you bring the ice to the next event? Would you greet people at the door? Give them a little job, begin to get them involved and active. And then they think, oh, that's kind of fun. And I like giving and serving this way. Or, encourage them to bring people, begin to give them a little bit of responsibility. Maybe they can do the intro. Maybe eventually they can work up to doing the presentation at the meeting. Certainly acknowledge and edify people for every little accomplishment, because then that inspires them to do more, and begin to turn over and delegate little responsibilities that you can to them, with the idea of always looking out to see who has leader potential, who might be ready to develop, and then just give them their next step. And it doesn't really matter if, you don't have to ignore the people who are not going to be huge dynamic leaders. Just as a gardener, as a gardener of your garden, and the people on your team are the precious plants that you're caring for. See who's ready just for their next step and give them one step, because that's all we can take anyway, right? We can't take 10 at one time. We can just take the next step that we're on. So look over your team and see, what would this person's next step be? What would this person's next step be? Now, getting people started right and leading them, I really do highly recommend our class that we teach on Sunday nights, because right there, that's how to develop leaders. That's how to move fast and get people going fast. I'll put the link to that in the comments. We teach the 10 core commitments that are tried and true over decades, developed by Jeff Olson originally, who wrote the Slight Edge, and he trained Jeff in these. And so we teach these on Sunday nights. And the 10 core commitments is how to get somebody started fast and right, and be here a year from now. Personal development, market daily, present daily, attend weekly presentations, attend weekly trainings like our Sunday night class is, and attend monthly regionals, attend all your company's conventions, and have a massive monthly action plan. When you follow these, you will empower people and you'll develop your team the best way that I know. That's why I'm partnering with Jeff to bring you these really, this is the most important stuff that we can teach, as well as skills and scripts within there that you can empower your team when you give them real simple script that we teach in there. It's an indirect script that Jeff developed, and I love it so much that I wanted to get behind him and teach this. So in a nutshell, that's how to empower your team. Jump onto this 10 core basics, quick start basics class that we have. I recommend. Any other questions that I've been coming in as I'm rattling on here?
I didn't see anything.
Okay, we thank you all for being here. You all are leaders. We thank you for what you're doing. We are here to help you do what you do better. We're your support team. We're helping you to develop you as leaders, to develop your leaders, to develop leaders. So let's pass on this legacy.
And guys, like, share, comment. If there's somebody you know that we need to affect or talk to, let us know so we can get a hold of them and bring them to this event. Thank you guys so much for the first round, and we look forward to starting with you tomorrow on round 2. Thank you so much.
Okay.